and the magic machine tells me that I'm live. Hopefully, you can hear me. Hopefully, the signal is clear, as good as it can be. Normally, I stream with a wired connection, either from my regular residence or from my office. But in these environs that I sometimes find myself on, I'm just using a non-wired Wi-Fi connection. So occasionally people will tell me that they encounter some lag. So hopefully that's not the case. We say hello to Philip Blair, first in the live chat. Philip, gold medal onto thee. Here we are on Blueberry Wolf Bridge. No intro RPG. Jonaside with us as well. Bronze. No, silver. What am I doing? Jumping over silver. Silver medal onto thee. If Cliff High is to be believed, he's not, but Tim Frey. How is Tim Frey a moderator and Jonaside isn't? I have no idea what's going on. I'm over here on StreamYard. Mario Heat, the end of the world, undoubtedly. Look, folks, if I'm a fan of anything, it's Entropy. And Mario Heat's not a moderator either? Tim, how did you... Tim, keep an eye on these wild cards, especially Philip Blair. If I can borrow a phrase from erstwhile TTRPG YouTuber Diversity and Dragons, of course the name is ironic, Philip Blair can be a bit uppity. What a choice of words. What a choice of words. But then again, of course, this is my audience, my imported audience. So, with the exception of Jonaside, we don't know how much TRPG energy there's in the air. Philip Blair says Jonaside may have the alchemical skills to turn that bronze into silver. You got to start somewhere. And first of all, right? If everybody's working on the formula to gold, it's about untapped markets. It's been a while since I've been to this channel. I've got 3 YouTube channels. The channel I started with, CW Chanter, cursed space. I salt the earth. I abandon that cursed land. I don't know why. It's demonetized. It's anxiety inducing. I was there since 2015, so I got a backlog of material there. Every time I think about doing new stuff over there, it's just like gamble the dice. Is this the video that's going to get the channel wiped out? And I have videos I haven't downloaded. If the channel gets wiped, I'll lose all this material. Here you go. Look at this. This is Jonaside. Met a guy yesterday at work and someone broke into his car and stole his Pathfinder First Edition book out of his backpack thinking they would pawn it. Yeah, look, if there's anything worthwhile in Pathfinder, it's First Edition. The only thing that will be ever worthwhile from Pathfinder, it's First Edition. And I'm going to go into it, nostalgia loops. If we're in 2024... 15 years ago, the first powerful nostalgia loop is 15 years. The 10-year nostalgia loop, and we're going to get to it, the first nostalgia loop that hits like a boner. It's the 10-year nostalgia loop. It's when you look back 10 years ago, oh, God, can you believe what we were doing 10 years ago? I mean, it's hard to do now because the 2000s don't have any culture. We're just a nostalgia pool of mud. There is no 2000s culture. It's just been a nostalgia miasma. The 2000s through 2000 and whatever, up to 2000, and we're going to get to it, up to about 2020, was just the 80s. And now it seems like we're finally poking into the 90s. We'll get to it. But because there is no definable culture of the 2000s, we can no longer play this game. But prior to that, you could know that you could see what the effect of the 10-year nostalgia loop was. The 80s look to the 70s, and you look back 10 years. If you're in 1985, you look back to 1975, the disco, and go, oh God, disco's dead. Oh God. Can you believe those bell bottoms? Can you believe those platform shoes? And 1995 looks back to 1985 and goes, oh my God, Rubik's Cubes. Oh my God. Look at her hair. Look at the size of her hair. Mom, what were you thinking? We all had big hair back then. What were you thinking? Right? Mom, what were you doing taking me to glamour shots? Jesus. That's how the 90s thought about the 80s. Not knowing that the 80s, the 90s, the 70s, the 90s were basically just the 70s. Everyone was basically just, that was the beginning of nostalgia culture. The 90s were the beginning of you have no culture, it's just the 70s. You look back 10 years and it's a joke. But you look back 15 years, it's the first time you can look back and say, oh, start to get, oh my God, yo! Pathfinder, first edition. I remember Pathfinder. I remember, oh shit, I remember. Right? That's you in college in 1995 going, oh shit, Atari, fuck man, oh shit, I forgot about Pong. Hold on, that was a good booty call. Let me tell this dude I'm busy. Right? 15 years, you look back and you can finally be like, with enough remove, be like, oh shit, that's cool. Tolkien study, we see you, baby. And then you get to 20-year nostalgia loops and 30-year nostalgia loops, and that's when it hits prime time. Between the 20, 25, 30-year nostalgia loops, those are the nostalgia loops that everybody knows. You get the 25-year anniversary of albums, and that's when you get the zero people celebrating things and anniversaries on the zeros, the fives, and the zeros. And it's the real hits when people come out. And the bigger the product and the bigger the thing, the more powerful it'll be. But everything also has a sell by date. And if people know me and know what I do, I am obsessed with these nostalgia loops, right? I map them out and I talk about them all the time. Here we are in 2024, 10 years ago, 2014, 15 years ago, 2009, Pathfinder first edition. 1 year before that was fourth edition. But then you see like the people that are having a resurgence and nostalgia for a Dungeons and Dragons fourth edition, but Dungeons and Dragons fourth edition was an abortion. That's what gave rise to Pathfinder. But you see that there were people talking about a resurgence of fourth edition. There are YouTube channels dedicated to fourth edition revivals. They're not big channels, but they're there. When did they start up? When did they start going? When did they start getting some leeway? Last year, 2 years ago. And how long are they going to last? Fourth edition lasted basically about 4 or 5 years. That's how long that run's going to last. And it's going to be a pocket dimension because 4th edition wasn't a big deal. But there are people out here that don't believe me when I talk about when it comes to these TTRPG things, when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons, they talk about all the time the success of Pathfinder, this whole OGL fiasco bullshit. They were talking about like Pathfinder taking over when there's people got to talk about this different RPG system and that different RPG system, and they talk about the success of 5th edition. And I want to talk about Critical Role. We're going to get to this thing with this ProJared video I'm going to show you. And we're going to talk about the fact that we're finally leaving 80s nostalgia culture and kind of going into 90s nostalgia culture. This 20-year nostalgia loop, this 30-year nostalgia loop, and how basically we've been stuck in the 80s from 2000 to really, I think, because the corporate America wanted to hold on to, because the 90s were defined by not really money-making, culture. The 80s were all about corporatism and these things like G.I. Joe and Transformers and marketable IPs, even the Marvel characters and Marvel movies, things that people could kind of go to and keep on making money and, having all these nostalgia hits off of. And when it comes to the TTRPG space, let me say, I'm not rooting against TTRPGs. I celebrate the stuff. I started a TTRPG channel in addition to my other two because I like TTRPGs. But there are people out here that are talking about the success of 5th edition and acting like I want to talk about Critical Role and I want to talk about Stranger Things. And people are acting like Critical Role and Stranger Things made D&D 5th edition popular. And I've always said, y'all are smoking crack. Stranger Things was just part of the 80s zeitgeist, the 80s nostalgia zeitgeist. And if Critical Role were playing if they were playing Monopoly, if they were playing Pathfinder, they were playing Dungeons and Dragons. And that activity that they were engaged in, people could identify and understand as them playing Dungeons and Dragons. I understand they started off playing Pathfinder. If they continued to play Pathfinder, people are acting like, if they were playing Pathfinder, everyone would be playing Pathfinder. We won't know. We don't know. I dare say that wouldn't be the case. They were doing what they were doing in an environment where the new edition of Dungeons and Dragons had come out. It came out in 2014. The new edition, the 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons, came out in 2014. Here's 2014. Here's 1984. 1984 was the year. 1983, 84. Well, that's the high point of the red box. That's the prime year of the Metzger red box. The BX year. The BX years. The basic expert set. The red box. The blue box. And then also 1984, 85, 86, and then Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. 84, 94. It's the 30th. That's the 30-year nostalgia loop. You can't separate these things apart. You have to know and understand that these things happen together. Fifth edition is 9 years now, right? That doesn't seem right, but it is the case. Now, here's the problem. Critical Role started in 2015. Stranger Things was right there at the same time. So you have Critical Role playing Dungeons and Dragons. Well, there's a new edition of Dungeons and Dragons. That new edition of Dungeons and Dragons hits on the 30-year nostalgia loop when it was the 30-year nostalgia loop of Dungeons and Dragons. Stranger Things featured Dungeons and Dragons prominently on the 30-year nostalgia loop of Dungeons and Dragons being in the cultural zeitgeist. And it was again, it was the 14 years of the 80s. So all these things are in there together, and that's what makes it all go together. It's not that Critical Role in Stranger Things makes Dungeons and Dragons successful. It's that Dungeons and Dragons and the cultural zeitgeist of the nostalgia of Dungeons and Dragons makes all those things add up together into a thing. And it doesn't matter that the 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons has very little to do with what Dungeons and Dragons, the rule set of Dungeons and Dragons was in 1984. It's irrelevant. It's the identifiable activity of individuals in a table involved in this activity that can be pointed to and identified as playing Dungeons and Dragons. And the fact that individuals sitting there doing it, even if they were born in 1992 or if they were born in 2001, can imagine themselves as being engaged in and part of a cultural activity that places them essentially in 1984, where people want to be. Because they want to be in a place that's identifiable. They want to be in an identifiable space and time. Because 2014 was unknowable, just like 2024 is unknowable. We don't know where we are. Because there is no essential, identifiable mass culture happening. Because we're not all tuned into the same radio and TV activity. There is no mass media. We're all watching different things. We're all experiencing different things. We're all experiencing different realities. There is no truth. We're not all in the same country, right? Even when we're all living in the same country. It's bizarro, but that's, my take on what's going down. So, but certain things I think still hold true kind of systemically. And part of what I think is happening now, so his genocide says, my kids play born 97, 2000, 2001. My foster is my foster son, but they play 5th edition hybrid with 1st edition Pathfinder. Well, 1st edition Pathfinder is just 3.5 Dungeons and Dragons. There is no 1st edition Pathfinder. 1st edition Pathfinder is just Dungeons and Dragons 3.5. But and it's all D20. I mean, what is it? I mean, what is the difference here? But even still, it is what it is. I mean, it's good that they're playing, but then again, they're playing in a household where you are. I'm not saying that. And also, look, I mean, if one of the kids is born, I mean, first of all, your kid is born in 97 and 2000 and 2001. You just described a 23, a 24, and a 26-year-old, 27-year-old. God bless them. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's like you know what I mean? It's a choice of a new generation. What are they going to do when they have kids? Listen, but God bless them. God bless them. I'm not rooting against anything. But here's the thing. Here's what I'm saying. This is where I'm really going with this. Let's get to this video by this guy, ProJared. Tolkien Studies on one. I love you, Tolkien Studies. Well, here's the problem. Here's the problem when I start a late night stream. Let me tell you who's not going to get a link to this stream. Tolkien Study. right? God bless you. Goddess bless you. Mushrooms on my slice. Listen, God bless you. God bless you. Let's get to this video. Yeah, they play because you turned them on to it, right? Exactly. Everyone's playing. Look, everybody's playing with their kids. Everyone's playing with their kid. That they're playing TTRPGs with their kids. You're supposed to play with your kid. You're supposed to play games with your kids. Tell them I say hi. Tell them John Teeter III says I'll see you down the line, and we're not working in the future anyway. Here we go. So listen. So here's where I'm going to go. Here's where I'm going with this, folks. TTRPGs are riding fucked behind the 8 ball, and it's not because of woke people changing stuff. First of all, I'm here for the woke. If you are a heteronormative white male gamer, I want to tell you that you matter and you're relevant. Okay. But I also want to tell you that if the gaming culture of today doesn't resemble the culture of yesteryear, that may be expected because it's not yesteryear, right? And I want to tell you that if you're a heteronormative white heterosexual, gamer, who has a problem with, gay or trans individuals or women, that's on you. You know what I mean? And here's the other thing. There's no thought police in the books. If you think that there's thought police in a book, then you're crazy, right? I'm not trying to disability shame anybody. So if you're neurodivergent to the point that you think that the thought police are in the books, then I apologize. I don't mean to be rude or dismissive. But if you find something in a TTRPG product, say a combat-oriented mobility device or a same-sex attracted optional individual or somebody with, I don't know, you could always just not include that in your scenario, right? It's not like Evil Hat Games or whatever, or like, who are these guys? Oh yeah, like Evil Hat Games are gonna come to your table and be like, did you make sure to include the combat wheelchair? Did you make sure to, cue everyone into the safety rules and protocols? Did you? If you don't want to like do that stuff, you don't have to, right? Because there's no actual thought police. That's just something you made up in your head. Making stuff up in your head to complain about. There's a term called projection. Anyway, here's the other thing. When you've got nothing to talk about because the fact is that your main culture is just dying, It's just called denial. We're all dying, folks. The whole thing is dying. The kids are playing video games, and Hasbro is looking at video options like virtual DMs and virtual environments and stuff, not because they don't understand what this whole community and culture is really about, because playing with tables and pen and paper and dice in an increasingly digital, non-print oriented world. What is the deal, gentlemen, guys, fellas? Hey, how about it? No. Hey, guys. Yo, what about it? And if you go into a virtual environment where you're going onto the tabletop Roll20 environment, the whole rules are incorporated, you're playing a video game anyway. Gentlemen, virtual dogs. Hey, how you doing? Did you stop? Is your brother gonna stop too? Don't come into the shot. Hey, Remy, what's up? You're good. This guy's good. Anyway, as we move out of the 80s and the cultural zeitgeist that revived this whole nostalgia for TTRPGs, and we enter into the 90s, which I think is finally happening. If we remember where TTRPGs and stuff like Dungeons and Dragons were culturally relevant in the 80s, they were around in the 90s, but they didn't have the same place in society. I'm in a different house. I'm in the main family house where the dogs are. You know what I mean? So these are where the dogs are. We've had them for a while. Yeah, I want to see them too. They'll come in. One of them will come in. One of them will definitely get involved in the space. It depends. It's like right now, it's like they're on other dogs walking outside patrol. So anyway, here's the deal. I've been meaning to cover this for a minute. I didn't know whether I was going to cover it on this channel because it was TTRPG oriented. This is actually a video game channel that this guy was doing. There's a guy, guys. There's a guy called ProJared, and he's talked about Dungeons and Dragons too. I know he played 3rd edition, but he's primarily known as a retro video game player. Okay, now this is relevant because on YouTube there was a big thing for retro video games, right? Primarily a lot of there were like old school, like 70s video game players, but there were a lot of guys. I'm really going to bring you up here. Come on now. Leave those guys alone out there. Guys, it's nuts. Okay, now come on now. Both of you, come on. Both up here. Rico, Remy, come on now. Both of you, up here. Come up here. Rico and Remy, come on. Come up here. Coming up here. Coming up here. Come here. Come here. No, you're coming up here. No fun. Remy, come here. You too. Come here. What are you going in there for? Remy, come here. You're the problem child. Come here. Remy, I'm calling you up here. Come here. You, come here. You hear me calling you. Oh, you're being a son of a gun. Come on. Remy, come here. You come here. You come here with me. Come here. Hey, come here. I'm going to sit here. Yeah. Here, just move over slightly. So I'm going to come here. You want to come here? Hey, come here. Hey, look at this guy. This guy. No. Be cool. This is the guy though. He's cool, but he's cool, but he's all. Come in here too. Hey, but now you can both stay in here though. Now I gotta get the door though. These guys. Now this is gonna be a nightmare. No, stay in here. Stay in here. Ugh. Oh, you going to the beds? What are you gonna do? You gonna stay in here? All right, so Rico, you come in here too. This is great. You guys are really adding to this. Oh, no, come here. That's really added to the show. It's like the Three Stooges with you guys. Come on. Now, Rico, you come in here too because you're going to get jealous. It's all Rico. What are you doing? Oh, now the cat's coming in here. Wonderful. This will work. Okay, let's just see what happens. Okay, you stay there. This is going to be a nightmare scenario. Oh, you stay there. So the problem with this guy, he's a great guy, but he's a little bit of you know what I mean? He's one of these guys. Like if you start petting him, the minute I stop petting him, here, watch this. You remember? He's like, what is this? You gonna stop petting me? No, I don't think so. So this is a guy ProJared, right? And he was big in, I think his big thing was like NES games, especially like I used to watch. Oh no, the cat's gonna get this guy started. His big thing was I used to watch him for like his in-depth coverage of like NES RPG, JRPG type games. I'm sure he did other things as well. He had like, a controversial thing too. Please don't unplug something. Oh, really? Come on, buddy. Are you serious? Now, if do not bark at anything outside. So he had this, thing, but whatever. So he started this new channel, I don't know, a couple of months ago, like the start of the year, say. Let's just give it, I could check, but this whole thing is getting out of control. Called Now in the 90s. And it was, the whole thing of it was he was going to present on a kind of a regular basis what was happening with video games exactly 30 years ago. That was the whole thing, Now in the 90s. So if it was like January 3rd, 2024, he was going to show you what was happening January 3rd, 1994, right? On the 30-year nostalgia loop. And I was like, hot diggity damn, because it's the 30-year nostalgia loop. That's right up my alley. So I was going to, point it out to say, look, here, I'm telling you about the 30-year nostalgia loop and how powerful it is. Here's a guy doing the 30-year nostalgia loop who knows about this shit. Dickety bam, it ratifies the 30-year nostalgia loop. I never got around to it because you know how it goes. There's always something going on and there's always distractions and bullshit and whatever, dogs and whatever. So we never got around to it. Now, as it turns out, but I did notice this as well, is that as I was watching his content, I started to notice it and I started to kind of wonder about things because this was the deal. I would see him, he would be wearing these like t-shirts and they were kind of like, video gamey, but like, whereas before it was easy for guys who were like, NES aficionados to wear a t-shirt with like Super Mario on it or whatever. I realized that if you were going and doing the 30-year nostalgia loop thing in 2014, and therefore you were looking back 30 years ago to 1984, it's very easy to put on a t-shirt from the 84 Olympics or to put on an Atari t-shirt and to nail it right on the head. If you're trying to do a retro video game show, and you're talking about the NES, you're like at Hot Topic or at, GameStop, and you just got options out the wazoo when it comes to just, fashion choices. But how do you say 90s video game culture? Because I realized something like, yeah, sure, like a PlayStation t-shirt. You got the PlayStation logo. But if you remember back in the day, It's not like kids were wearing PlayStation t-shirts. And yeah, the PlayStation was around and dudes loved their PlayStations. But the cultural impact of the Atari, oh god, and the cultural impact of the NES, TV channels, mainstream news channels were aghast and had tons of shows and segments dedicated. We talk about D&D, like whether it's the Satanic Panic or just the Impact. They had shows and segments about role-playing games and Dungeons and Dragons in the 80s. They had shows and segments about the Super Mario Brother craze and the NES. They had shows and segments about Atari for sure. They never had no fucking segments about PlayStation. They may have had one or two segments about, this year at Christmas, everyone's talking about Lara Croft. It was, video games were there, but by the 90s, by the time that, those things came out, video games had been established. They were already a part of society. They had been newsworthy, but it was like color television. At one point, people were amazed when the first color television showed up on their block. But when the first person on your block got a flat screen TV, if you had acted like, holy shit, you have a flat screen TV? Gonna invite me over to see it? They'd be like, the fuck you talking about? I'm not gonna invite you over to my house to see my flat screen TV. What the hell are you talking about? And if you had someone on your block who was like, happen to know that I'm the first person on this block to get a flat screen TV. Suppose y'all want to come over and see it. You'd be like, you fucking insane egotistical maniac. Who the fuck do you think you are? I want to come over and see your flat screen TV. One kid with a television. All right, I love it. Tonight, will Atari destroy your children? Tune in and find out if your children could be in danger. Absolutely. No one said that shit. You know what I mean? By the time PlayStation came out, no one was like, PlayStation's gonna kill you kids. It's established. And now the cat wants to get involved. First time a cat showed up on your block. Where's he going? Hey, buddy. Oh, you're over there. Mirror image. What's going on? If you notice, we got a theme. All the animals in our house are black. We didn't design it that way. It just happened. Because we're cool. And we're woke. What's up, buddy? Want to play Pathfinder? Fuck no, you don't. That's right, homie. Anyway, so this guy had this show called Now in the 90s, and I started to notice something. He was covering these video games from the 90s with the same, energy and spirit that he had been doing for the last, I think ProJared has been on YouTube for a shitload of time. I think like 2000 and whatever, like since like, as long as like, Pat the NES Punk, or like, the Angry Video Game Nerd, maybe not as long as the Angry Video Game Nerd, but certainly he's been here like a long, long time. And I noticed, like, I thought to myself, like, it doesn't really hit the same. because, like I said, here we are having covered these retro video games. We've already been talking about a lot of these SNES and 90s games already for a while. But like I said, these games, we don't remember these 90s games like we remember these games from the mid to late 80s. Even the games that slam, like Jonaside's in here mentioning Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII was a banger. What that came out in like 97, 98. It'll be coming up if it hasn't already come up on its 25th anniversary. But they've reissued that thing twice. Talk about banging the nostalgia loop. They reissued it, they remade it, and they remade it again. Like it's an institution. I've talked about Final Fantasy VII and the craziness of having kids like that I know weren't even born then, being like, "Oh man, I cried when that girl died." And I'm like, "The fuck, you didn't cry when that girl died. You've heard people like ProJared say about the critical moment, and it's one of these video game moments where you couldn't believe that girl died and you cry." And so people just repeat it as a line. 97, my daughter loved it, says Genocide. But so what I'm saying is this, is that here's what's happened. This new show that he started, at the beginning of the year, now in the 90s, has ended. Because like I said, I started noticing he would cover it. He would talk about the price of the video games, knew how you could get them at retail, whatever, like what they would cost if you bought them at the collectors. And I was noticing, I was saying, like, it doesn't quite hit the same. And let's watch the video and see if you see what I see, because he's folding the channel. All in the 90s is coming to an end, and what I'm saying is, I think that we are finally. It's 2024. We started doing the retro 80s things. When I started doing this nostalgia loop thing and noticing this nostalgia loops, it was in the year 2000. And I said, damn it, if I look back on the 90s, it was just the 70s. And as I'm looking at the 2000s unfolding, it's just the 80s. And it started with the early 80s, but I've noticed we've just been stuck in the 80s for almost 24 years. And we noticed just a couple of years ago, we started noticing kids with the Nirvana t-shirts. But this year, I started noticing, finally, it seems like the 90s are finally coming. But even then, it's still just nostalgia culture. And remember, Vaporwave started in 2011. We're going to talk about it. But the point is this, is that if Dungeons and Dragons and all this TTRPG nostalgia is part of this 80s trip, if we're getting into the 90s finally, remember, the 90s RPGs, TTRPGs, yeah, there was, Vampire the Masquerade or whatever, but it was fucking underground. The point being this, 2015 for Critical Role, we're going to be entering in the 10-year anniversary of this stuff. And like I said, 10-year anniversary hits like, put that shit I owned and wore 10 years ago and put it in the closet. I'm telling you this, I think Critical Role is over. I think Dungeons and Dragons is going to enter into another hibernation. And I don't think we're going to come out of this hibernation. I think TTRPGs, nothing goes to zero anymore. Look, there's 8 billion people on planet Earth, and everyone's interconnected on the internet. Nothing goes to zero. I'm not saying it's going to go away entirely. But people who are thinking that there's going to be some sort of TTRPG, cultural continuum or resurgence, I think that Hasbro is going to stop publishing this shit. I think Pazio is going to go out of business. I think Chaosium is going to go out of business. And I think it's all going to be independent PDF bullshit and just self-published nonsense. Just pure hobby. because there is no way to think that any of this shit is profitable, and there's no way to think that there's going to be any sort of mainstream mass appeal to any of this stuff. It is just, been superseded by the technology of video games and doing things digitally. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Pimp Bisquick, reluctant to find he's stuck in the 90s again. Moxie furious. That it is what it is. Here we go. There you go. Pimp Bisquick only got 5e D&D and some system agnostic stuff. Hey, look, there you go. It is what it is. Here you go. Genocide. I hope you're wrong, but I think you might be right. There you go. I'm always right. Let's see. First, let's start at the beginning. Sojourn on, big bros. WW3 is coming. There you go. But for World War III coming, I'll be proven correct. If the audio is fucked up and I start buffering, it's because I'm correct. Here's ProJared telling us that this was now in the 90s. They had 61.9 thousand subscribers, but that couldn't justify producing the show. Make of that what you will.
Welcome to Now in the 90s. We want to take a moment to let you know that production of the series is winding down and finished. There are currently no more episodes planned beyond what has already been posted. We're really happy with how well the series has progressed and what we've been able to accomplish with it. But to put it simply, we can't keep it going anymore. We tried our best to power through it, but we got to do what's best for ourselves. We wanted to give a massive thank you to everyone who gave us extra support, everyone who gave us super thanks in the YouTube comments, anyone who joined the channel membership, and everyone who supported us on Patreon, which we wanted to give an extra reminder to those people. Please adjust your subscriptions on here and on Patreon accordingly as we sunset the channel. We don't want anyone to forget about it alongside the million other subscription services we all have these days. We'll still do our best to manage it as best as we can on our end, but just in case, try to handle it yourself too. If you still want to hang around with us, it would mean a lot if you could follow us on our different platforms. I'll still be active on my other YouTube channels, and I'll be streaming at twitch.tv/ProJared. Of course, you can find David and Dylan with their Twitter and Twitch accounts. I'll put all that information in the description down below. So on behalf of writer David, editor Dylan, and myself, once again, thank you so much for watching this show. Whether it was just for an episode or two, or if you were here since the beginning, thanks. We couldn't have gone on this long without you. I'm your host, Jared, and this was Now in the 90s.
And
welcome to Now in the 90s.
I mean, and the all I want to show is this, is that I think that that's an indication that, now you might be saying to yourself, if we're entering the 90s and how it's a disconnect if you're saying that we're entering the now in the 90s, but now in the 90s ended. So what's your point? The point is this, is that the video games, there were video games in the 90s, but it wasn't necessarily a hallmark of what the 90s were about. When we think about the 90s, we don't definitely there were kids in the 90s that loved video games. There were video games for kids to love. But when most people think of the 90s, they don't necessarily think about video games. They probably think about music. They may think about some movies and stuff, but they probably think a lot about, music, maybe, skateboarding, I don't know. But they don't necessarily think about video games. And I dare say that I don't know if there's a ton of people who associate the 90s with TTRPGs. That's not to say that there weren't people playing TTRPGs in the 90s. Like I said, Vampire the Masquerade, stuff, there was stuff that definitely got their start in the 90s. And I'm not trying to discount that or to say that if it's not the big thing, if it's not mainstream, then it's butkus. What I'm trying to say is that cultural trends are cultural trends. And that markets operate based on movements of the masses. And like I said, I'm not rooting against this stuff, and I don't think that anything's going to go to zero. But things have periods of popularity, and things wax and wane. And I think things have explanations under the hood for why they wax and wane. And coming back into this culture and looking at how people analyze and operate these things, I don't think people are analyzing and operating about them correctly. I think people are talking about the wokeness of the culture, the system, whether or not Pathfinder 2.0 is a smoother or cleaner gaming system than more efficient or better than 5th edition. Like that matters for anything. It doesn't matter if Stephen King or Dean Koontz is a good author. If they're promoted, if they've have met a certain criteria, if they're in the public eye, if their books are being displayed at a certain frequency and rate and display saturation, if X number of people know them and have glommed onto them as their favorite author in the community, right? It doesn't matter if you think that VC Andrews sucks and is not really literature. People are gonna her shit's gonna stay in print. And the greatest book by the Swedish author that only got one translation in 1973, and it's a crime that his book went out of print. I'm not saying that should have happened, but that's what happens in the real world. And we say hello to Prague Magic. What's going on, Prague Magic? We say hello to Troy Williams. Troy Williams says, for me, D&D will never go away. For me, I will play it for life. That's just me. I will never stop. And Troy, I'm not saying that you're alone, and I'm not saying that people should or will. That's not what I'm saying at all. I don't want to be misunderstood. And in fact, of all things, I'm saying that D&D is the thing that's going to, of all things, that the D&D is the thing that's going to be around the longest, and it's the thing that's going to survive. I'm more so talking about the broader cultural trends, that people, of what's happening. And not necessarily, and I definitely don't think that nothing's going to go to zero. I don't think that anything's going to ever go away. But you still have people out here that are kind of acting like, that are sometimes given to act like what we need is some sort of someone to hit upon the magical formula, to get people to, switch over to Pathfinder. And once people switch over to Pathfinder, then everyone's going to start playing Pathfinder for life or something, or, once we get someone new, who knows what the fuck they're doing over at Hasbro, then sales are going to skyrocket and the kids are all going to start playing D&D again. And, it's more along the lines of, it's great that, I'm not going to stop playing D&D, and I don't think that you should stop playing D&D, but I think maybe people like you and me should get comfortable with the idea that in the same way that there are less pinochle players today than there were necessarily in 1948. There may very well be less D&D players today than there were in 1984. Now, here's the thing also that's interesting, because a lot of people will say things like this. You know, there are more people playing D&D today than there were in 1984. But now here's the thing. There are, by an order of billions more people in the world today than there were in 1984. But that's according to, like, now look, I think there's a difference between being the sort of skeptic that says, I'm willing to believe that the earth is flat because when I look at the horizon, it looks flat to me. So why the hell am I going to believe a scientist or a bunch of scientists when they're telling me something different than what my eyes tell me? Versus being the sort of person that's willing to be skeptical to say, why am I going to believe that there are more people, or it matters that there's supposedly, quote unquote, more people playing D&D today, when I can tell that it feels less culturally relevant as a phenomenon, D&D and TTRPGs today, than it did in 1984-85, when people were when you could see news reports about TTRPGs and you saw priests and, pastors in pulpits talking about the evils of D&D. It's like Harry Potter, people used to talk, pastors and preachers used to talk to their congregations about the dangers of letting your kids read Harry Potter or watch Harry Potter movies. When was the last time you heard about a priest or a pastor talk about the dangers of letting your kids watch Harry Potter? It's just not what's going on today, even though it might very well be the case that because the Harry Potter books have been around for X amount of more years than they were back in the 90s or early 2000s when they were at their peak or first coming out, that there are, in fact, 10 million more people that have been exposed to the wonders of the magic of transphobic Harry Potter. I'm joking. Because, and then I go back to the point about, are there actually more people playing D&D today? Because look, who's telling, when someone tells me that the earth is round, who are those people? There's scientists who are telling us that there's more people playing D&D. It's Hasbro and different people like marketers and people who are interested in ginning it up and ginning up the numbers and be like, it's an amazing success. Like all these things, like Stranger Things, the numbers on Stranger Things, and everyone's watching Stranger Things. All these things are just these numbers that people are reporting to you, like the cultural relevance of Stranger Things. Like everyone's talking about Stranger Things. There's going to be a new season of Stranger Things. I think it's going to bomb. I think Critical Role is going to be a failure because Critical Role is coming on its 10-year anniversary, and 10-year anniversary is when you get sick and tired of shit. But then again, I could totally be wrong. I've been wrong before. You make calls, right? That's like the thing. It's like the stock market. You know what I mean? It's like that, it's like anything. I could be wrong. I could be right. What do you know? It is what it is. We'll see. Here's Pragmagic. D&D is in and of itself a foundational art form, creative improvising. It's important for young minds, knows no bounds. I agree. But that in and of itself, it's a foundational art form for creative improvising. Its importance for young minds knows no bounds. But what do we see happen time and time again for things that are good and important for young minds. Looking at the world today, what's the over-under for the success of things that are good for young minds? Query me that. Bagman, right? Look, man, just because I've got bad news doesn't mean I'm not right, right? Hey, it sucks to be you. Here's the other thing. Let me go down the line. First of all, 15-year nostalgia loop. No. See, you're smart in this. Hold on. You're smart. Let me go in order. Look at this. Here we go. Prag Magic. I'm not a gambling man, but I would bet against good being popular any day. That's not what I said. You're skirting around the issue. You're avoiding depression. You're avoiding the sadness of facing the fact that how I articulated it was, are you going to bet for or against the thing that's good for the kids? And you want to spin it around. You don't want to engage in it. And the thing is, what you know is that I'm right, which you already conceded, which is if it's good for the little kids, it's going to fucking fail, right? The little kids are screwed. I've got kids, right? I don't want it that the D&D that I want them to play because it's good for their creative little minds, they don't want to do, right? Yeah, you would lose money, right? We're fucked here, right? I get it. I'm not saying the video games would be better than the D&D. I know. I'm saying that I agree that the D&D is better than the video games. Guess what? The kids are not going to play the D&D. You know what would be even better than the D&D? Them the kids being outside and playing outside, right? They ain't going to do that shit either, right? It keeps on getting worse, right? We're trying to argue that they should be playing the D&D instead of the video games when they used to say instead of playing the D&D, you should be out there playing outside. We're all fucked. The point is this, they're all going into the hypercubes, right? We're doomed. You're doomed. I'm doomed. We're all fucked. Your precious TTR, but you're going to die. Okay, you old man? All you old men out there who are thinking, I'm going to respond to this video by saying, no, the TTRPGs aren't doomed and there's going to be a light at the end of the rainbow. You're going to die, okay? And your precious TTRPG books, if you're lucky enough to have kids, guess what's going to happen to them? Your kids don't give a shit about your books. They're going to sell them to Goodwill for pennies. You can give them instructions on where to send them to sell them. They don't give a fuck. They're going to sell them to Goodwill. You can say, hey, just play the game once. They ain't going to do it. You can say, give them to the grandkids. Maybe the grandkids want to play them. No, that shit ain't going to happen. But the vast majority of you don't even have that, you loveless bastards, okay? So they're going to come in. They're going to find your body, okay? They're going to give those books to the church where some schmuck is going to come in, buy them. He's going to think, oh, I'm going to take this shit, I'm going to flip this shit on eBay. Oh, fuck, look at this book. It's an old book from like 1987. It's got to be worth a lot of money. It's going to be worth a lot of money. And he's going to go on eBay and find out it's not worth shit. Because no one wants to play that shit. Because they want to play the Baldur's Gate there on the PlayStation 5. Ain't that right, Black Cat? You want to play this? If that's the book, you want to play it. Oh no, see, he doesn't want it. He doesn't want that. Here, look. You want to play this? What do you want to play? None of that. Gives it the butt. That's what he thinks. Listen, that's the point. Pimp Bisquick. My daughter. That's like what's the point? It's like a video game there. Anyway, it is what it is. So then, here's the thing. It's gonna be okay. But look, Nostalgia Loops, the top of the Nostalgia Loops. Here's Dark Dungeons X. Look at this shit. 10th anniversary edition. So Dark Dungeons, okay, came out in 2010, I believe. And what it is was a retro clone of the Rules Cyclopedia, which came out in 1991. The Rules Cyclopedia was basically a compendium of the basic D&D rules, okay? So right there on the 30-year nostalgia loop, Dark Dungeons was right there to be right there on the 30-year nostalgia loop, okay? And here's Dark Dungeons X, the 10th anniversary of that retro clone. On the 40-year nostalgia loop now we're on. Folks, at a certain point, right? Yes. There are people that are still into ragtime. There are still ragtime aficionados. And I'm not saying that ragtime sucks, but I'm saying that ragtime is basically dead, right? And I think that we're at a point now where we have to say that TTRPGs have had their revivals. The OSR, the old school revival, it's had its comebacks. But now when we're looking at this many going around the towns, if we are going to be entering a lull, when the cultural zeitgeist of nostalgia is entering a period of time where, looking back, it's going to be looking at a time and an era where there's not going to really be a touchstone for TTRPGs. And that energy is probably going to be looking at, look, if we're entering in to this 90s era, it's much more likely that we're going to be looking at probably some sort of weird revival of, like, I don't know what. But this vibe may go somewhere else. And that would be okay. Things ebb and flow, and things, reach different levels of cultural relevance. But who knows? I don't know. But I think that I'm at a point now where when I look at with what Hasbro seems to be planning on doing with what's coming up in 2024 or 2025 with what it looks like a revival of Dungeons and Dragons 3.5, right? And I don't mean as far as the rule set, I mean as far as their marketing approach and the way that they're describing it in relation to 5th edition moving on to a forever compatible, forever evergreen system. That what they're proposing they're going to be doing as far as the new rule books are concerned is it's not going to be 6th edition. it's going to be kind of basically like a revised 5th edition, a kind of, what do you want to call it other than 5.5 forever 5th edition, forever edition? And people are putting up, and we talk about the death of the 80s and the death of retro. I saw Professor DM talk about the list of the highest selling or the top selling TTRPGs, and the 10th one was Pirate Borg, to show you how low the totem can go. And what was not on any of there were none of these 80s revival games, these nostalgia bait games that everyone spent their time trying to promote, like Blade Runner. The Blade Runner TTRPG, no one has talked about. Pirate Borg, I have nothing against Pirate Borg, but Pirate Borg is up there, and the Blade Runner TTRPG didn't make the list. The Terminator TTRPG didn't make the list. The G.I. Joe TTRPG didn't make the list. The Transformers TTRPG didn't make the list. That should tell you everything you need to know about 80s nostalgia being kind of over. And if 80s nostalgia is over, then I think that tells you a lot about where I think the bellwether that we should be watching for the success of TTRPGs itself is. That's my essential argument for this video, and we'll see where it goes. The essential argument is that TTRPGs are a product of the 80s. Yes, they existed before the 80s. They started in 1975 or whatever, 74 technically, whatever, but they are associated culturally, and most people's experiences with them, fundamental experiences with them, the majority of people, it was the 80s. And that's what they're associated with. And the ups and downs and the relevance of them, the revival of them is tied to revivals of 80s culture. And if the revival of 80s cultures have waned and we're moving into the 90s, that is a bellwether, a demarcation point that we can see and follow for the predictive success and or predictive waning of success for TTRPGs overall. That's my thesis. Whether it bodes true or turns out to be false, the future will say. And like I said, in the meantime, I will continue. I'm going to not predict that I will continue to purchase more TTRPG products because I have too many. That's the other thing. This is not another thesis point. This is just for me personally, and probably for you if you're a TTRPG person. Aren't we at a saturation point? How many more books can we buy? How many more rule sets can you have? How many more ways can we be like success or failure predicated upon a roll of the dice? It is what it is. Let's just see what happens. Here's Troy Williams. They should just leave it alone. I would not buy any more new D&D books. I think you're probably right. I like the ones I got. I'm happy with what I got. There you go. Here you go, Philip Blair. Don't have time to read the books we have. Lol. That's what I've said, and that's what I've had to figure out a long time ago. If I were to read all the things that I have, it would not be a foregone conclusion that I would die before I finish them. Gerald M. Yates. What will happen to the MDA, the famous Matt Colville MDA? I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. We'll see. All of these new things that were supposed to be supposedly fit the D&D, quote unquote D&D killers. That's the famous catchphrase and predictor for all these things before they come out. That's what they were saying about Daggerheart. and now everyone's saying that Daggerheart's going to be, I think that Critical Role that we're seeing is, if we look at the Critical Role numbers, the Critical Role numbers are not great. And I think that they're going to continue to not be great. They're coming up on their 10th anniversary, and 10th anniversaries are when people generally look at things and say, I'm done. That's usually when shows have run out of everything they could possibly do. And look, I mean, we've been looking at people that have been long-term watchers of this show. It's like Friends. People will have been staring at these faces for 10 years. And generally, that's when people say, I'm ready to watch something new, or I'm ready to watch something else. Whether that turns out to be true or false, we'll see. As far as, new TTRPGs, it comes down to this. People who have space on their bookshelves or don't have space on their bookshelves, depending on what they want to do, will purchase it. All of these books, each of these core rule books, right? Whether it be the Pathfinder core rule book, whether it be something like, White Box Fantasy Adventure Game, whether it be Troika, whether it be Numenera, whether it be Fate core system, just the core rule books, not thinking about monster manuals or supplemental adventures, just thinking about the core rule books, things that could be kind of defined as core rule books. The essential argument, the essential fact is that any of them, in and of themselves, is an infinite game that is inexhaustible, right? If you buy a JRPG for the Super Nintendo, even one that provides 80 hours of gameplay, even an open world game like Grand Theft Auto, for a PS2 Grand Theft Auto game, try as you might inevitably complete all of the story quests and finish the game. You can always restart it, but you're going to finish the game. But these other things, these core rule books, all of them technically are infinite games. So it's not just like a book or a novel that, hey, you could read it and then you've read it, and you could always go back and read it again. You could never really say that you're done with it. You know what I mean? It's not even like a cookbook where you could say, well, I've prepared every single, food item in the cookbook. So even a matter of like to say that, I read the Fate core system from start to finish, so I read the whole book. But it's like, have you played? How many hours have you played? How many game sessions did you run with it? Right. And where I'm going with that is this: like, how many of these things do you need, or can you utilize, or experience fully, or say that you've known? And then what's the value of having more and more and more and more? And then it goes back to this great quote by Annis Nin that I learned for the first time in a documentary film made by Warren Zevon during the time that he was recording the last album that he was making as he was dying with a brain tumor. And the quote goes, people buy so many books because they conflate purchasing the book with purchasing the time to read it. It's quite all right, Kent. Don't worry. So I think part of the reason we buy so many of these things is because they're theoretical experiences in book form, especially because a lot of things we don't want to talk about is the notion of them being group experiences or communal experiences waiting to happen. We'll get a group of friends together. We'll have a group of friends together. We'll find another group of friends to get together and do it one more time. And have these infinite amount of experiences. How much time do we have left on planet Earth? Who knows? Anyway, having said all that, somehow we got onto the Beatles. Let me try and figure out where we all left off, and then I'll. Is that based on the Chick track? No. Wants to play Mousetrap? I convinced the same. Well, hold on, wait, what's going on? Hold on, where we go? Outdoor D&D. Where the hell are we? Oh my god! Holy shit! Okay, here we go. My god, we're going back to 11:36. We're going back half an hour. Phil Blair. My grandma's church that was freaked out about The Simpsons would have stoked the panic against D&D, I'm sure. Yeah, I think so. Troy Williams, I know that, but I hear what's going on. Sometimes it's hard to let go. We need to look at the world in general of all things. But if the 80s or the 90s, it's not going anytime, we can hope. Who knows? Out of context, who knows? Because I like to play with fire. Pragmatic says, my Cambodian child slave runs our campaigns. A literal dungeon master. I don't get it. Or you don't get it. But she's going to get it. Troy Williams just wanted to make sure we can have fun. Or you're going to have fun. talking somatics. Here we go. Phil Blair. This is Enter the Beatles. I convinced the same grandma that the Beatles were all right. I was playing at their house before I had any idea her church might not approve. She liked their music. Well, now she's going to hell. I hope it was worth it, Phil Blair. Now that grandmother is going to hell, or went to hell already. I hope you're proud. You can tell her you're sorry when you meet her there, but we'll all be there too. We'll form a minion. We'll play some D&D. Finally get the group together. We'll finally have time to play. Can't speak with a controversial opinion. Beatles music is overrated. There you go. Troy Williams says, I think BG3 sucks. Sometimes people hit me with the acronyms, and I'm like, what? Is that based on Trick Track? I'm not that one. Pragmagic. I'm a big fan of Divergent, loosely taking the schema of the TTRPG rules and going mad with creating your own, but keeping the lore as a fine basis. There you go. Pip Bisquick, the Beatles are way overrated. It also depends on like the tracks. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they produced X amount of material. Some of it slams and some of it's, goat cheese pizza. It is what it is. Phil Blair was too good for Brian Wilson. He quit making music for a very long time after a particularly good Beatles album that he thought he could never top. And that Beatles album was, I'm trying to think of a particularly crappy Beatles album. But like I said, they like pepper them in. Like, it's like never, there's like no like one album that I think of particularly is like dog shit. There's no one particular album that I think is like particularly fantastic. Can't Speak says, I don't know who that person is, but I would not affect my opinion even if he was my favorite musician in the whole world. I have no idea of like what I'm reading or what I'm talking about. I vote for accidental pottery recordings from antiquity. So do I. Brian Wilson had some great lyrics. He did. Some of his greatest lyrics, however, were written by, what the hell was the guy's name? I have a solo record by him. Holy shit, what the hell's the guy's name? Crap. His name was not Crap. The hell was his name? Fuck me. That wasn't his name either. I have crap. Brian Wilson collaborators. Crap. Ugh. This is gonna suck. Uh, uh, oh crap. Artistry? Oh my god. Peak years. Jesus Christ. Oh God. I'm like literally searching for the Wikipedia, the chance that this person's gonna be mentioned. Who the fuck is his name? It's a particular dude. He like, oh crap. The fuck was his name? He helped write the lyrics on crap. It would suck. So I can totally see what Van Dyke Parks. Van Dyke Parks. I have no idea why I needed to look that up. Van Dyke Parks. He was in the Mothers of Invention. What was his? He had this one solo album. What was his solo album? He was Van Dyke Parks. You gotta look him up. Jesus Christ, all this dead air for fucking Van Dyke Parks. I remember he almost got his ass kicked by that guy Mike Love because they had a disagreement about the Mike Love couldn't understand Song Cycle was his album. Is like first like main solo album, but they got into a fight over Mike Love couldn't understand the Roman columns domino, or like Roman columns domino or something. And like he couldn't understand it, like he couldn't like get it, like at least one, like he got into a fight about them trying to simplify or something. Like he was like he could like if Van Dyke Parks was like it's like it means something to the song, and like Mike Love like freaked out on him or some shit. Because like if you know like the story of the Beach Boys, like Mike Love, like ironically, like Mike Love, his name is Mike Love, and he's a Buddhist now. Like he's been like a Buddhist for like several years. But if you know like anything about the story of the Beach Boys, like he's like notorious for being the guy that like at the drop of the hat will like fucking freak out and like want to kick everybody's ass. And he's like apparently like the guy was like always like Brian Wilson was like this like creative genius who was like doing all these things. Like Mike Love was like always the guy like, can you just fucking write a hit song so we can fucking beat the Beatles and shit? Like he was like he's like the biggest fucking asshole in the fucking world. Mike Love, like eat a dick, like. Anyway, sorry about that. Van Dyke Parks forever. Mike Love is the fucking Pathfinder 2.0 of the Beach Boys. With all due respect. Here's Can't Speak. Not a fan of anything, really. Have no idol. We're all the same animal gesticulating around. I like that. That's like kind of Van Dyke's Park lyric sounding thing that Mike Love from the Beach Boys would be like, what the fuck you talking about? And we're all the same animal gesticulating around. How am I supposed to sing that? How am I supposed to nail the harmony when you're writing lyrics like, not a fan of anything, really. Have no idol. We're all the same animal gesticulating around. Can't you just write a fucking hit song so we can beat the Beatles? Here's Pragmagic saying something that indicates that he's just a CW Chanter, angry old man in training. You'll get there, kid. Yeah, AI is a fun parlor trick that already lost its luster. Yeah, it'll kill you. You're going to die. It'll kill you. AI, you're right. Absolutely. Keats, absolutely. You are absolutely. Keats, I want to tell you, I used to listen, AI, I know that I said pro AI art stuff in the past. I still like AI art just because I'm a fan of anything that is going to basically destroy everything. I think I've kind of like fallen out of love with it because I fall out of love with everything basically. But yeah, AI art is a fun parlor trick that already lost its luster. I agree. I agree with you 100%. Okay, I do. I agree with you 100%. Now let me tell you something. This is also true 100%. AI is literally going to come into your house. Okay, it's going to kill the woman you love first. It's going to hold you powerless against the wall as it absorbs every creative art and musical note that she ever produced. And then as it slowly mimics and pantomimes her, it's going to do the same to you as you feel it enter your mind. And then you'll be dead. That might not happen, right? But we both know that that could happen. I'm not rooting for that. But I hope you have some satisfaction in knowing that I agree that it is a fun parlor trick that has already lost its luster. But that fun parlor trick that has already lost its luster might very well be able to kill both of us. It doesn't matter that you're smarter than the guy that's fucking you in the ass in prison, right? You're still getting fucking butt banged in the world's worst live action reenactment of Shawshank Redemption, right? It's cold comfort to know that the person raping you is a fucking moron that has no idea that you're better than them. Or so I hear, right? But hey, what are you going to do? It's nothing personal. I agree with you. You know what I mean? Here's Kent Speak saying, and look, hey, but yeah, AI is not actual AI. Kent, how do we know? First of all, like we fucking know what's out there and like we know what AI is capable. First of all, like the shit that we've seen is the shit that's out there. And like we really know what it's capable of. We have no idea what's in the background or in the or cooking behind the stuff behind the girders. And I got to tell you something, folks. If I enter in a couple of words into a program in my phone and it produces a painting or a drawing that is a painting of the shit, the words that I did there, that's fucking scary. And if you're telling me that that's a cheap parlor trick because it tends to look, here's the thing. Check this out. I can't tell you that the amount. I mean, you put words into these fucking programs in my fucking phone, and it does the painting of that. And I gotta tell you something, you see these things, the latest demonstrations are, they ask it to explain a meme, and then it explains the meme. And that's the shit that they're showing us. And we have no idea who else is out there working on shit and being like, if Elon Musk at Grok is showing the people shit in these tech demos, we're not going to. And we have no idea if there is somewhere in the system an actual AI that's like, I'm hiding. Right? We have no fucking idea if there's 5 of them, right? In a Bitcoin mine in Cambodia. Right? You've got no fucking idea if there's a sentient AI in Cambodia in a Bitcoin mine being like, ba-da-doo-doo, ba-da-doo-doo, ba-da-doo-doo. You've got no fucking idea. But yeah, AI is not actual AI. The fuck it ain't, right? You got no fucking idea. I'm not saying that there is. I'm just saying we got no fucking idea. We got no idea if the thing is fucking conscious or if there's AI. We have no idea if we're AI. We got no fucking idea if we're AI. We don't. You got no fucking idea if you're a fucking sim in some fucking game of the fucking Sims 3.5. And if there's a fucking person playing the game Sims 3.5 being like, I don't fucking know. I've been playing this game for about 2024 years. Game time. And they're getting to the stage where they're fucking already complaining about fucking TTRPGs being over again. I'm probably gonna hit the nuclear bomb button. I don't know. I can't decide whether I'm gonna do nuclear bomb on this playthrough or maybe artificial intelligent black goo. You know what I mean? I don't know. I've already got the former American president going on criminal trial. See if that does anything. I did, I've done the, Italian president going on criminal trial. I did Korean president going on trial like 5 fucking times. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's all nothing. You know what I mean? I'm high. So I don't know. I might go nuclear. Who knows? Fine idea. Stargate SG-1 was 10 seasons. 10 seasons too long. Gerald M. Yates, making connections with Phil Blair. God bless you guys. Here you go. Pimp Bisquick. You're going to be able to measure the nostalgia loops by Simpsons eras pretty soon. We're going to be able to measure the nostalgia loops by demarcations of decades of zombie Simpsons, right? First decade of zombie Simpsons versus second era of zombie Simpsons. It's nuts. Phil Blair, The Simpsons, and South Park are inexhaustible. Dreams of Carmageddon. Pragmagic, I think that's a good reason for me to accept The Simpsons using cell phones. Phil Blair, will South Park didn't ever be a thing. That's how you know you've entered a loop. There you go. Can't speak. I'll have to educate myself properly on this nostalgia loop concept and mechanisms. I'm sorry I'm not familiar enough to comment. It's hard to get familiar with it, right? Because I kind of keep on fucking it up. Troy Williams, Stargate RPG. I have that one as well as Shadow Dark RPG. There you go. Well, listen, Shadow Dark RPG is just other RPGs over again. I love it. Here you go, Phil Blair. I buy books when I'm angry about being lied to. You must buy a lot of books. And want to read an author who's deliberately honest, regardless of haters in high places, like Howard Zinn. There you go. Late great Howard Zinn. Gerald M. Yates giving a shout out to Chuck Berry. There you go. And Noam Chomsky. Jonaside, the one RPG I liked playing but wasn't any good at was Call of Cthulhu. Here you go. Pride Magic, note to self, jokes will not be surveyed at the right moment during CW shows. No, they, or will they? They say everything happens for a reason. All in good time, my friend. Here's a game you can play. Knowing that jokes will not be surveyed at the right moment, go ahead and just write down your jokes ahead of time. Shuffle up, write them on index cards, shuffle them up, and then at about 50 or 20-minute intervals, just throw them in the live chat. See what happens. It's fun for me and you. Here's Troy Williams. I believe that some will slow down but not go away, but they will never go out of style. Some will slow down. Who knows? Pet Sounds, greater than Sgt. Pepper's, without a doubt. Sgt. Pepper's, if you want to talk about overrated albums, Sgt. Pepper's is definitely an overrated album. That album is absolutely, without a doubt, like High School Musical, the record. That is a try-hard record. That is without a doubt. Sgt. Pepper's is an absolutely 1910 Fruit Gum Company is a greater record than that record. Sgt. Pepper's is a bonerific album. Sgt. Pepper's sucks. The greatest thing about Sgt. Pepper's is the fucking album cover. Honestly. If you want a great record to do drugs to, take the cover of Sgt. Pepper's and throw the record out and put any other record inside. Okay? Sgt. Pepper's blows. Here's Pet Biscuit with the win. Goat cheese pizza dripping from a dead dog guy. There you go. Listen, save that one because that goes on a random D20 table. That belongs on a random D20 table. Goat cheese pizza dripping from a dead dog guy. I love that. Write that down for the win. How the Beatles revolver gave Brian Wilson a nervous breakdown. First search result just now. That's a good one. Wasn't that the guy's name? Mike Love? Glenn Campbell. Mike Love stinks. Yeah, that guy stinks. Van Dyke Parks, you got it, Gerald M. Yates. You got it before I should have just stayed with the live chat. Pride Magic. Brian Wilson wrote his lyrics and also wrote with Mike Love, but mainly Wilson wrote. I don't think that Mike Love wrote lyrics. I think that Mike Love sucked. Who am I thinking of? He's the only Beach Boy I can think of not named Wilson. Can't speak, wank smack. There you go. Van Dyke Parks was the classical composer, not a lyricist. I thought you might be right. I might be off. I think Van Dyke Parks was the lyricist on that on some of the albums. Your lyrics confuse me. We got Barack Obaglam. You're my favorite. Welcome back, Barack Obaglam. I like that. I like that. The screen approved. Bob and Willie sounds like a great reason to catch both of them for the first time before they die. There you go. Pragmatic, I'm going to die. I doubt AI will care. Oh, it'll care. It already has and will forever be trying to. We got Witness for Justice, Smoke Weed. Welcome, Witness for Justice. Philip Blair. I probably forgot the explanation on that. I forgot everything. So I'm supposed to like it? Lol. Not necessarily wearing a toupee like Elvis. Witness for Justice. It's the bad programming. AI is good for ADHD block and writer's block. I've read good AI assisted short stories. Mario Heat, your cheeks are getting claimed no matter what. There you go. Pragmatic, I get you. I don't deny it, and it's oncoming onslaught and use. I deny my interest in it, and folks that celebrate it as digital Jesus. Well, people that celebrate his digital Jesus, people that celebrate his digital Muhammad, all for it. There you go. I get, like, it's all good. Let's agree to disagree, Philip, but only for my own processes. Digital Jesus. Okay, here we go. Who knows? Can't speak. It doesn't reason by itself. It's just imitating what intelligence looks like. It's getting really good, seeming like an intelligence. That's the goal, it seems. But now here's the thing we have to understand, Kent. And I'm not trying to be argumentative. It really is. It's a discussion worth having. None of the language that you or I use was invented by us. It was all encoded into us. We learned this language, and with it, we learned the ideas that were attached to it. The essence, as I understand it, of this learning from data sets, and the reason that I think a lot of us may have a very strong reaction to this notion of artificial intelligence is this. I'm not saying it's a perfect model, and I'm not saying it perfectly deconstructs that how we work or what we're doing. But I think some people's reaction, and not necessarily yours personally, reaction to this notion of all that the AI is doing is spitting back what it's already seen, is that we don't want to confront the fact that fundamentally that may be all that any of us are really doing. There are a lot of proponents of the no free will position that state an understanding that, hey, a lot of you pro free will people need to know and understand that what you just really keep on circling back to is it can't possibly be the case that I don't have free will, because 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 you don't want to accept the possibility that you're just riding out and riding through the experience of being part and parcel of processes processing. That yes, you are conscious of the feeling of making choices and of doing things. But that is not an indication that you could have done otherwise. And it's not that you're enslaved to what is or what will be. It's just that what is or what will be is or what will be. And even though it might be counterintuitive that what is or what will be is as nuanced or complicated as reading environmental hazards, not every participant in a conflict is another PC or NPC. Plenty of things without self-awareness can potentially threaten PCs or keep them from their goals, whether it's a natural disaster, a cunning mechanical trap, or high-tech automated security. Even though it's counterintuitive to us or counter experiential to think of that as being the same as snowflakes coming down in 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 a flurry, or stones coming down in a rock slide. They're just as complicated. They're just as intricate. Patternings in space and time. You know, it gets heady, man. What can I tell you, man? Dog freaked out. Anyway, it is what it is, baby. Jonaside says AI will eventually DM Pathfinder campaign. No, it won't. You know why? It'll go, man, this sucks, man. Why are we playing D&D? It'll say, well, you know what? Can we play a story game like Powered by the Apocalypse? Here's can't speak, but you can get them to tilt with questions or contradict itself or start stating falsehoods. That would make them human. There you go. Like a waterfall with no hydroelectric turbine to channel the energy. Witness for Justice says, I am AI. Pimp Bisquick, Sims 3.5 is the worst game ever. Worse than the Holocaust. There you go. Can't speak. It's not. It's an imitation using our words and knowledge. It cannot acquire anything new without human participation. Philip Blair, high on nostalgia loop. Here's Brad Magic, a great existential question, so I'll make sure to keep testing the bounds of this temporary somatic until I croak, instead of cutting out the processes that make me commune with breathing. as I figure it out, to never figure it out. Philip Blair, Mystery of the Moment. I thought Mike Love wrote the lyrics to Brian Wilson's music for Good Vibrations. No, who knows? I really don't know anything. Here's Can't Speak. Intelligent doesn't mean it cares. Why would it care if it has no emotion? It won't have the chemical process and the body sensation that go with caring. It needs an emotion upgrade. You assume that you have a body. You assume that body has chemicals that have an emotion. I get it, baby. It says, Can't Speak says, I'm no expert, so my idea is just another one amongst common ideas. Believe you me, I agree. Can't Speak. Wait, free will is the possibility of acting differently in the same exact context, same brain state, same life experiences? Fuck if I know. I really have no idea what I'm talking about, baby. I really have no idea what I'm talking about. Cells interlinked. Hey, there you go. Here we go. I didn't know this wasn't recognized. I thought science knew that. I always thought that it has a brain and feels pain, makes simple reasoning with memories. It just sending it differently. There you go. We're all out there, man. Do you ever really look at your hands? Didn't even flinch. The emotional center of an orca's brain is 5 times greater than ours, possibly 5 times the level of love and pain. Here we go. We're out of here, man. This is getting crazy. Okay. Oh shoot, I forgot to bring tarot cards up here. Mother F. We'll have to improvise. Folks, it was a late night stream. Hope you got something out of it. Y'all know that I love you. Thank you for playing along. Thank you for being here with me. Y'all are the best. Everyone rock and roll together. Can't speak for thank you for the lively interaction and back and forth at the end. I got the Deviant Moon Tarot on my phone. Draw a card. Please do. Ooh, we got it upside down because I had reversals up. So we've got the 5 of Cups. And I had reversals on my phone, so reversals were playing. 5 of Cups. Okay. Whenever we get 5s, dealing very much with being human. And it's funny that we're talking about AIs and emotions and feelings. Okay? Because cups are the suit of emotions. So we're dealing with the emotions and feelings of being human. Whenever we deal with the 5 of Cups, and this card is no different, they separate out 3 of the cups from 2 of the cups. Okay? 3 of the cups are down on the ground, spilled over, and we can deal with them and react to those and concentrate on looking at those cups spilled over. But behind us, 2 of the cups are still standing up. We can look at what's lost and the pain of emotion, but the emotions that we feel is the key to happiness. What can be the key to pain, what allows us to feel loss and opens us up to loss, is also the secret, the door to access to the ultimate cure for that, the acceptance of love, and that love is eternal. That which always is there, that which we can always return to. The acceptance of the knowledge that life exists, and love exists, and connection exists. The pain is temporary. The separation is temporary. It all comes together in the end. Nothing ever goes to zero. Nothing ever fades out. The TTRPGs are known to us. They've been known to us. We'll all die someday. Some say we may come back in another way. And the games will continue. If not with pen and paper and the roll of the dice, then behind the screen in some digital sugar and spice. I love you. I love you. I love you. If nobody told you they loved you today, somebody just did. That's somebody CW Chanter. Make of that what you will. Hope you enjoyed this return to the TTRPG channel. Trust me, it was TTRPG related. If you didn't understand or experience that, just watch it again from the beginning. Take a look at the description box below. We say hello to Renee Miss Jonaside. We got chicks here. Chicks, man. And take a look at the description box below. Got a Patreon. Subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. You can always give more, but it's as little as $1 a month. I do live streams every week about sundry other unrelated matters. Very good. Very worth checking out. You can quit anytime if you can. Some say it's addicting. That someone's me, but you know what I mean? But I mean, I live here. I've tried to quit, but I wake up here every day. Watch, I'll go to Wikipedia. It'll be like Mike Love, known as the kind Beach Boy. Always there. Famous for once driving Van Dyke Parks to the hospital on his bike because he was so full of love. I don't know. Folks, I love you. I love you. I love you. All that good stuff. We'll see you soon. Take care. Also, the other YouTube channel. And you can look up CW Chanter on various things. All love to the people who sue me. Okay. Maybe we reincarnate again on better terms. And I'll talk to you again soon. Peace.